Welcome back to the Bunkhouse. It's with great pride that I introduce you to a very dear friend of mine. We've been good buddies for most of 30 years, and we've had a lot of good times together. He's a rancher, a horseman, knows about as much about the racehorse business as anybody I know, and he's got a tremendous eye for a good horse and a lot of wonderful stories about horses. His name is Johnny T.L. Jones, Jr., and he hails from Quannah, Texas. Johnny, welcome.
Thank you, Red.
Sure, I'm glad you joined us.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with your childhood, and so that we know, excuse me, how you got involved in horses.
Well, I just grew up in a little town. My father loved horses. He registered his first quarter horse in 1945. So from that, I was 11 years old at the time, and I've been around. When he passed away in 1958, he had 30 head of horses. So that's when I started, and then got ambitious, you know, there in Quannah, and built a farm and lost all my dad's money. I didn't want anybody to think I was born rich. So I ended up in Kentucky in the stallion business, and, you know, and then I ranched, and I got fortunate. But when I went over there, I had a wife, 4 kids, my mother, a dog, and a cat, and no money.
Do you reckon there's ever anybody involved in the horse business that hadn't had that downturn at one time or another? I don't know of anybody.
Well, I don't know of anybody that, you know, basically started from scratch that hadn't. I mean, I suppose if they had the wherewithal to begin with, the downturns didn't make any difference.
Well, when you established Walmart Farms in Kentucky, and you stood some pretty famous stallions, didn't you?
Well, I got in on going to Europe early in the 70s, and it's before everything got, you know, crazy, you might say. So I was fortunate to connect with some important people, get a hold of stallions that would come back and work in America, and I basically rode that wave for about 15 years. And I was fortunate enough to have horses like Nuriel, Alleged, and some of the best horses in the world.
And was there at least one son of Northern Dancer?
Nuriel. And I had some friends in France, and the French government was getting ready to change, and they were ready to move some horses. So I just happened to be there, thinking that they might want to move Nuriel. So they did, and he ended up at Walmart.
Well, you've known some great horsemen in your life.
Well, I've known people from all over the world that were good horsemen, starting with the quarter horses and to Ireland and a lot of different places.
What about Walter Merrick?
Walter was I guess he was my example. You know, he didn't say much, but he was a legend. You know, he goes back to Midnight Junior, Gray Badger, all those good horses.
Foundation sires of the quarter horse breed.
Foundation, and 3 bars. He brought 3 bars to Oklahoma, and he was a good man, and for some reason he liked me. And so I trained for him in a couple of years in the 60s. Won Kansas Futurity with Jet Smooth, and he's just really a good, solid individual, and did a lot for me.
Is there a big difference in the way you look at quarter horses and thoroughbreds? If you have racing quarter horses and racing thoroughbreds, are there conformation things that you look at that are different in the 2 breeds?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, the more muscle a horse has, the quicker he stops. I mean, as far as how far he can go. So, but the general profile, you know, the side view of an athlete, where you're buying a ranch horse or a derby horse, it's very similar. You don't need to be packing a lot of muscle on a horse trying to win the Kentucky Derby. But the real athletic look is important with any breed.
Right, regardless of what you're going to do with it.
Whatever you're going to do, they need to be athletes. Now, I will say this, you never know it all. So about the time you think you do, that one exception will happen. So your best just to not have too many opinions.
I also know how much you love ranching, and I know what kind of cattle you raise. Let's talk about what you're raising now. And you have a ranch at Quannah, And you had some ranches in Oklahoma that we had a lot of fun.
Well, I just kind of sold out up there and came back home, you might say. Made the full circle. And we raised Angus and Red Angus. And then we crossed our Angus, put the Brangus blood in them to sell, you know, a little slicker haired, more heat resistant type animal for our part of the country. And we keep about 350 cows.
If somebody wanted to buy some bulls from you, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, word of mouth, I guess. I hadn't spent a lot of advertising or anything. I have contact from the ranch in Oklahoma, and I sell most of my bulls private treaty. And they can call John T.L. Jones, J-Bar 7 Ranch, Quannah, Texas.
So you've even progressed to the point where you have a website.
I don't know much about websites, but I've got one.
But if you go to J-Bar 7 Ranches on the
Correct.
on the internet, then you can find out all about
Exactly.
you. And you're still running horses? Are they primarily?
Got a couple of thoroughbreds, but I started back running quarter horses in '98, and a partner R.D. Hubbard, you know, and we've had, you know, a lot of luck. We had a couple of champions and won some good races.
Well, we've had some really good times, and we're going to have a multitude of them from
Well, I
now
hope
on.
so.
Johnny, thank you so much for coming and visiting with us. It's always good to see you and spend time with you.
Glad to be here.
See you soon.